While there are plenty of beer festivals all over the world, none can even come close to Oktoberfest. So I present to you the history of the Marzen and Oktoberfest. The word Marzen is German for March, as in the month, not the verb or the overly militaristic style of band music made popular by John Philip Sousa. This name is not accidental and draws a strong connection to another month of the year through the annual celebration known as Oktoberfest. The Marzen is a type of beer that arose as a style about 500 years ago in Germany, but it wasn't categorized as a lager until after lagering yeast was discovered in the 1800s. Some theorize that back then, German brewers were forbidden to brew beer during the warmer months due to their equipment being largely made of wood and there being a fire ban from April through September. However, most historians agree that the ban on brewing during those warmer months was to avoid spoilage from the higher daily temperatures. This restriction on brewing led to a mad rush for the remaining grain from the late fall harvest to be used up by the end of March. Consequently, beers produced during this time were typically invested with more malts and hops that yielded a particularly high alcohol content while benefiting from the preservative nature of greater hops. Which then leads to a discussion about the history of the IPA, but Seth doesn't want to hear about that one. These beers were stored in caves throughout the warmer months and consumed as needed or more likely as desired. It was inevitable that much of the beer would be remaining when the brewing ban ended in September, which meant a mad rush to consume it before beers made from the grain of that fall's harvest were ready. These beers, having aged the longest, would have the richest malt and the most mellow hop profiles of the year, which coincidentally happens to pair so well with the cooler nights and shorter days of the fall season. On October 12, 1810, Crown Prince Ludwig I of Bavaria, who later became King Louis I, and Princess Therese of Saxony-Hildburghausen were married, and all of Munich was invited to the wedding, which lasted 5 days and was held in a meadow outside of town. While the practice of consuming the remaining brews from last winter undoubtedly preceded this date, the Crown Prince enjoyed the Bacchanalia so much at his wedding that he declared it a yearly ritual, and thus Oktoberfest was born. The festival is held to this day in that same meadow where the first celebration took place. The Marzen from that time was much closer to a dunkel, or dark lager, than contemporary Marzen beers, but all that changed at Oktoberfest in 1872. This is the year that the celebration ran out of beer and had to look outside of tradition. To fill this deficit of beer, a well-known brewer supplied their Marzen, or original Marzen. This beer was derived from a Viennese amber lager recipe, and it was such a hit that from then on this lighter style was adopted as the official beer of Oktoberfest. In fact, modern Marzen beers are even lighter than that one. Nowadays, Oktoberfest includes plywood booths erected by brewers who can seat up to 6,000 customers at a time. About 2 million gallons of beer are consumed by patrons, and the festival draws more than 6 million patrons each year, many of whom are tourists in the area. Oktoberfest is usually celebrated over a 2-week period at the end of September into October, and often in countries around the world with large German populations. Look for a local festival next fall and check it out.